After her graduation, Kemi went back home, ready to apply for the NYSC, National Youth Service Corps, a decision that didn't sit well with her parents. Kemi, her father began gently, "We've been thinking. With your health, we believe it would be best for you to seek an exemption from NYSC. You don't need the stress." Her mother nodded in agreement. "Yes, dear. You know how the service year can be. You could be posted anywhere in the country. It's too risky with your condition." Kemi sighed. A part of her wanted to prove that she could live a normal life, even with sickle cell. However, she understood that her body might be too exhausted for the physical demands of NYSC, especially the uncertainty of where she'd be posted. Reluctantly, she agreed. With her NYSC exemption in hand, Kemi immediately started applying for jobs. Weeks passed, and although she had a few interviews, none turned into actual offers. One evening, after another unsuccessful interview, Kemi sat on her bed, staring at her laptop. The rejections were starting to weigh on her. "You'll find something soon," her friend Chidera had reassured her earlier on the phone. "Sometimes it takes a bit of time." But what if it didn't? What if her illness was scaring off potential employers, or her frequent hospitalizations made her seem unreliable? The doubts crept in, but Kemi pushed them aside. She wasn't going to let this stop her. After almost a year of relentless job applications and interviews, Kemi finally received the call she had been waiting for. It was from a mid-sized media company that specialized in lifestyle publications. The HR manager was impressed with her qualifications and determination during the interview, and she was offered the role of an editorial assistant. Kemi was over the moon. Her parents were proud, and Steve and Chidera were thrilled for her. Kemi's heart swelled with gratitude. She was finally stepping into the professional world. She started the job with high hopes, eager to prove herself and make an impact. The first 2 weeks were exhilarating but challenging. She was adjusting to the fast pace of the newsroom, learning the ropes and trying to keep up with her colleagues. Despite the physical toll, she was determined not to let her health define her experience, but she couldn't keep it up for long. One evening, after a long day at work, Kemi felt the familiar sharp pains that signaled the onset of a sickle cell crisis. Her body, pushed to its limits, was giving in. The next morning, she was unable to get out of bed. Her limbs were throbbing. The crisis worsened over the next few days, and eventually, she was rushed to the hospital. Kemi remained in the hospital for 2 agonizing weeks. The pain was unbearable, but even worse was the emotional toll it took on her. She had barely started her new job, and now she was lying in a hospital bed, unable to work, unsure if she would even have a job to return to. Her parents were by her side, but Kemi couldn't shake the sense of failure that was creeping in. One afternoon, as her mother sat beside her, the phone rang. It was from her employer. Her heart sank as she picked up. "We're sorry to hear about your health situation, Kemi," the voice on the other end began. "But due to the nature of the job and your extended absence, we've had to fill your position. We wish you a speedy recovery, but unfortunately, we'll have to let you go." Tears welled up in Kemi's eyes as she muttered a quiet "thank you" before ending the call. Her mother, seeing the look on her face, immediately moved closer. "What happened?" They let me go," Kemi whispered, her voice shaking. "I lost the job." Her mother hugged her tightly as Kemi cried, her heart breaking from the weight of disappointment and frustration. Once she was discharged from the hospital, Kemi struggled to adjust back to normal life. She found herself sinking into a deep depression. Every morning she woke up with a sense of defeat, wondering why her life couldn't be like everyone else's. She'd thought landing a job was the first step toward normalcy, but now she felt even further from that dream. She had tried so hard to be normal, to live like everyone else. Yet every time she took a step forward, sickle cell pulled her back. She began withdrawing from everyone, including her friends. Chidera showed up at Kemi's house, unannounced one evening. "We need to talk," she said firmly as she entered Kemi's room. Kemi, sitting up on her bed, gave her a tired look. "I don't feel like talking, Chidera." "Well, tough luck," Chidera said, sitting down next to her, "because I'm not leaving until we do." Kemi sighed but said nothing. Chidera reached out, holding Kemi's hand. "I know this is hard. I can't even begin to imagine how frustrating it must be. But you can't keep isolating yourself like this. You're stronger than this, Kemi. I don't feel strong, Kemi whispered. I feel broken. Every time I try to do something, my body reminds me that I'm different. It's like I'll never be able to live a normal life. Chidera squeezed her hand. Normal is overrated. You've achieved so much despite your illness, but you don't have to go through this alone. She paused, then added, I want to introduce you to a support group. It's a group for people with sickle cell. They meet once a week and they just talk, share their experiences and their struggles. I think it might help. Kemi hesitated. I don't know about that. Just come once, Chidera urged. If you don't like it, you don't have to go back. But I think hearing other people's stories will remind you that you're not alone in this. After a moment, Kemi nodded. Okay, I'll try. The first time Kemi attended the group, she sat quietly, observing. People shared their stories of battling sickle cell, some of triumph, others of loss and struggle. As the hours passed, she found herself slowly opening up, realizing that she wasn't alone in her fight. The experience was unexpectedly comforting. After the session, a tall, friendly volunteer named Bayo approached her. You're new here, right? He asked with a kind smile. Kemi nodded. Yeah, my friend Chidera dragged me here. Bayo chuckled. That's what friends are for. I'm Bayo, by the way. I've been volunteering here for a while now, helping out with the group. It's good to see new faces. Kemi smiled faintly. I'm Kemi. I didn't know something like this existed. It's helpful. I'm glad you think so, Bayo said, his tone gentle but encouraging. We're all in this together. It's not easy, but talking about it helps. The way he spoke, understanding but not pitying, made Kemi feel seen for the first time in a long while. Kemi left the meeting feeling a little lighter, as if a small burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Over the next few months, Kemi continued attending the group, and Bayo became a steady presence in her life. He offered her encouragement, never pushing her but always showing up when she needed support. Kemi began to feel like she was regaining control of her life. As Kemi and Bayo grew closer, she found herself confiding in him more often, especially about her restlessness. I need something to occupy my mind, Kemi told Bayo one evening after their weekly group meeting. I can't just sit at home and think about my health all day. It's driving me crazy. I'm a journalist, Bayo. I've always loved writing, right from my university days, but now it's almost like my degree is for fancy. I'm tired of doing nothing. Bayo nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Battling with job hunting, attending interviews, and dealing with low pay, especially with your health, is a lot. I'll suggest you go into freelancing. It's what I do, and it allows me to work from anywhere, and it's flexible enough that I can still volunteer here. Freelancing? Kemi repeated, intrigued. What kind of freelancing? Mostly writing and a bit of digital marketing, Bayo explained with a smile. You should try it. You're talented, Kemi. And I know you love reading and writing. You could start small, maybe with some content writing or tutoring. Plus, it wouldn't be too stressful on your health. She hesitated at first, but decided to give it a try. Bayo helped her set up a profile on some freelancing platforms, guiding her through the process step by step. He also introduced her to inspirational books that had helped him when he was at a low point in his own life. As Kemi began to take on small writing jobs, she felt a sense of purpose returning. She had her own source of income and a schedule that didn't strain her health. It gave her confidence and a sense of independence that she hadn't experienced before. Bayo began to ask her out, but Kemi was hesitant. After her past heartbreaks, she was wary of entering relationships. Bayo was patient. He never pressured her and continued to be a constant support in her life. One day, as they were spending time together, Kemi finally asked, "What's your genotype, Bayo?" Bayo casually replied, "Oh, I'm AA. Why?" Relief washed over Kemi. For the first time in a while, she considered the possibility of a relationship without the looming fear of their genotypes clashing. With that, she finally accepted Bayo's persistent offers to date. Their relationship blossomed into something beautiful. Bayo took Kemi to serene parks, cozy cafes, and scenic spots, always mindful of her health, but still making sure they created meaningful memories together. He introduced her to a range of healthy foods that were known to improve the well-being of sickle cell patients, such as leafy greens, fruits rich in antioxidants, and meals fortified with iron and vitamins. Kemi followed his guidelines, gradually adapting to a lifestyle that nourished her body and eased her health challenges. For the first time in her life, she went years without a major health crisis. It was a breakthrough she had never imagined possible. She found herself falling for Bayo, not just because of his kindness and understanding, but because he believed in her strength when she had almost given up on herself. "You've changed my life, Bayo," she admitted one evening, sitting beside him. "I never thought I could go this long without a health crisis." He smiled, his eyes soft. "You are stronger than you know, Kemi. You just needed to believe it." Their relationship felt different, stronger, and more grounded. Bayo wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her partner in every sense. Kemi and Bayo's relationship blossomed into something even deeper, with romance woven into every moment they spent together. They were inseparable, and it wasn't long before Bayo asked to meet her parents. One evening, after much discussion, Kemi arranged for them to have dinner at her family home. On the day of the visit, Kemi's parents were nervous but excited. "Welcome, Bayo," Ade, Kemi's father, greeted, shaking his hand firmly but with a soft smile. "Kemi has told us a lot about you," Bayo nodded with a warm expression. "It's an honor to meet you both. Kemi means the world to me, and I'm ready to stand by her." Funmi, Kemi's mother, watching him closely, leaned in. "We're glad to hear that. But you understand the risks, right? She cannot be stressed, and the crises, they can happen any time. It's not easy." "I understand completely, Ma," Bayo reassured them. "I volunteer with sickle cell patients regularly, so I know how to help manage the situation. I'll do whatever it takes to take care of her." Hearing that, Kemi's parents exchanged a relieved glance. They welcomed Bayo into their family wholeheartedly, trusting that he would love and care for their daughter the way she deserved. A few weeks later, Bayo invited Kemi to meet his own family. His family was kind and welcoming, immediately making her feel at home. They treated her with warmth. The couple's romance deepened. Then, one evening in a fancy restaurant, Bayo knelt down and proposed. Kemi was overwhelmed with joy. She couldn't believe how much her life had changed for the better. "Yes, Bayo," she said through tears. "Yes, I will marry you." Both families were thrilled and quickly began preparing for the wedding. They gathered for a family meeting to discuss the date and other arrangements. As the meeting was underway, however, the unthinkable happened. Kemi suddenly winced, clutching her side, her face twisted in pain. "Kemi!" her mother cried out, rushing to her side. She collapsed, breathing heavily as the familiar, excruciating pain of a sickle cell crisis overtook her. Bayo was by her side in an instant, helping to keep her calm while her father moved to get the car. Bayo's mother, however, was visibly shaken by the scene. The crisis lasted hours, and the weight of it all weighed heavily on her. As much as she loved her son, she couldn't shake the image of Kemi in pain, helpless and vulnerable. After that day, Bayo's mother began pressuring him to reconsider the wedding. "Bayo," she started one evening after the crisis had passed. "I understand you love her, but have you thought about what this really means? You'll have to take care of her for life, through every crisis. It's not easy. I don't want you to suffer." Bayo resisted at first. "I know, Mum, but I love her. I'm prepared for this." But the pressure mounted. His mother continued to express her concern, and even his father began suggesting that Bayo think about it more carefully. The strain of it all began to weigh on Bayo. He loved Kemi deeply, but the constant reminders of the burden he would bear began to cloud his mind. One evening, after much internal conflict, Bayo sat down with Kemi, his heart heavy. "I don't know how to say this, sweetie," he started, unable to meet her eyes. "But my parents, they're worried. They think maybe we should rethink the wedding." Kemi froze. What? Bayo, we've set a date for the wedding and even contacted the printer for the invitation cards. How could they think this now? Bayo's voice cracked. I know, but seeing you in pain scared them, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle family conflict. Tears filled Kemi's eyes. You said you would stand by me. You said you understood how my life is. I did. I do. But the pressure, Kemi. I don't want to hurt you, but my family. My mom said she wouldn't come for the wedding if I go ahead with it. Kemi cut him off, her voice breaking. So what now? You're breaking up with me? Silence stretched between them. Bayo was unable to speak. The weight of the moment crushed them both. Kemi felt like her heart had shattered. After everything she had been through, after all the love they had shared, it came down to this? Again? Kemi cried herself to sleep that night, wondering if anyone would ever truly accept her for all that she was, including her illness. The heartbreak weighed heavily on her, and in the days that followed, she spiraled into a deep depression. She barely ate, barely spoke, and the ache in her chest was constant. Late one night, after days of emotional torment, a sickle cell crisis struck with a force she had never experienced before. Kemi clutched her chest as waves of pain ripped through her body. She gasped for air, her vision blurred, and her limbs felt like they were on fire. She collapsed, barely able to cry out for help. Her parents rushed her to the hospital, their faces filled with panic and fear. They had seen Kemi in pain before, but this was different. It was worse. Far worse. Her mother sobbed quietly as the doctors worked frantically to stabilize her, while her father paced the hospital hallway. Hours later, Kemi lay unconscious, the crisis finally under control, but her body was weak and frail. Her parents sat beside her, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. The silence between them was thick with unspoken regret. Ade's voice cracked as he spoke. Every time she's in pain, every crisis, every moment she's fighting for her life, I feel terribly guilty. She's paying for the choice we made. They both looked at Kemi, her pale face lined with exhaustion. It's okay, Ademi. Don't do this here. We'll pull through. She'd be fine. After getting discharged from the hospital, Kemi resolved once again to put relationships behind her. There had to be a purpose for her life that had nothing to do with marriage. Instead, she channeled her energy into self-improvement. She immersed herself in online courses, eager to expand her knowledge and skills. As she improved her freelancing skills, opportunities began to present themselves. Kemi secured larger gigs, and soon the income started flowing in. With the health tips Bayo had shared with her, like maintaining a balanced diet rich in nutrients beneficial for sickle cell patients and managing stress through mindfulness, she became more attentive to her health. She cooked nourishing meals, practiced meditation, and made it a priority to listen to her body's needs. Kemi decided to take a break from relationships. She needed this time for herself to heal, to rediscover who she was outside of the struggles she had faced. Instead of seeking comfort in others, she cultivated self-love and self-acceptance. Her evenings were spent reading inspirational books, journaling her thoughts, and reflecting on her journey. A couple of years passed. Kemi's writing business transformed her pain into purpose. She no longer saw herself as just a sickle cell patient, but as a resilient woman forging her own path. However, her mother was worried about her. One evening, as Kemi sat working on her laptop in the living room, her mother approached her, concern written all over her face. Kemi, you can't keep living like this, Funmi said, sitting down beside her. You're always indoors, working, studying. You're already 32 and you don't go out. You don't even think about getting into a relationship anymore. Kemi sighed, gently closing her laptop. Mum, I just want to focus on myself. We should be grateful my health has been stable, and that is all I need. I am happy and grateful about that, her mother replied. But there's more to life than just working and staying healthy. You need to live and meet people. You deserve happiness beyond just being free from pain. Her father, who was sitting across the room, chimed in. Funmi, let her be. She's been through enough. Kemi smiled softly at her father, grateful for his support. Dad's right, Mum. I've had enough heartache for a lifetime. Funmi frowned. I'm not saying you should rush into anything. I just want you to get out more. Socialize. You don't even talk to Chidera and Steve anymore. You never know what life has in store for you. How about this? There's a wedding on Saturday. You could come with me. Just for a change? Kemi hesitated, but seeing the worry in her mother's eyes, she nodded. All right, Mum. Agreed. On Saturday, dressed in a simple but elegant gown, Kemi accompanied her mother to the wedding. The event was grand, with laughter, music, and joy filling the air. Kemi sat quietly observing from the corner, sipping on her drink as her mother mingled with old friends. Just as she was beginning to feel like slipping away, a man approached her. He had a warm smile and an easy demeanor. Hey, I'm Daniel. I couldn't help but notice you've been sitting here alone for a while. Weddings aren't really your thing, huh? Kemi chuckled lightly. Not exactly. I'm just here with my mum. Same here. My mum wouldn't take no for an answer. Daniel grinned. Mind if I keep you company? It's fine, she said, somewhat surprised by his charm. They exchanged numbers and began to chat after that day. Daniel had a way of making her laugh, and soon they were talking about everything from work to life. But Kemi kept her distance, politely refusing his invitations to go out. For 7 months, Daniel kept asking, regardless of her reluctance. Finally, after countless requests, Kemi agreed. Daniel took her out for dinner at a cozy restaurant in the city. As they sat across from each other, Kemi felt a bit nervous. She hadn't been on a date in what felt like forever, and though Daniel seemed nice, she couldn't shake the feeling that history might repeat itself. After the initial pleasantries, Daniel asked her about her work, and she explained briefly. I'm a freelancer, she said. Then, without warning, the words spilled out, almost as if she'd rehearsed them. And also a sickle cell carrier, SS. I just want to be upfront with you because I will understand if it's too much for you to handle. Daniel looked at her, surprised by her sudden outburst. He leaned in slightly, his eyes kind. SS. Well, I'm AA, he said calmly. And I don't care if you're SS or not. What's important is who you are as a person, Kemi. She gave a small, incredulous laugh, shaking her head. I've heard that one before, Daniel. Really, it's okay if you can't deal with all the baggage I come with. It's better to know now than later. Daniel leaned back, still smiling, though a bit more seriously now. Why do you feel like I wouldn't want to be with you? You seem to think I'd run the moment things get tough. Kemi sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. Because I've been through this before. I've had men who said they didn't care about my condition at first, but as soon as the reality of it hit, they left. It's always the same. My health scares people off. Daniel reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. I'm not them, Kemi. I'm genuinely interested in you, not just as someone with sickle cell, but as the amazing woman I've been getting to know. He paused, giving her a reassuring look. I have a cousin who's also SS, so I understand what life can be like with sickle cell. Kemi looked at him, taken aback by his words. Your cousin is SS? Daniel nodded. Her name's Ngozi. She's had a rough time growing up with sickle cell, just like you. Frequent crises, hospital stays, missing out on school. Thankfully. Lately, she's been managing better, though it's still hard for her. My family does everything we can to support her, but it's tough. Kemi nodded, listening carefully. Kemi explained how she had learned to manage her health and offered to share some tips with Ngozi. The conversation then shifted to lighter topics, and Kemi began to relax more and more. So, what about you? What do you do when you're not keeping bored ladies company? Daniel chuckled. I'm an engineer. I work with a construction firm, designing structures and overseeing projects. It keeps me pretty busy, but I love it. Sounds exciting, Kemi said, genuinely intrigued. On and on, they continued talking, laughing about random topics and sharing personal stories. The night flew by quicker than either expected. By the end of the evening, Kemi felt deeply refreshed for the first time in the past couple of years. Eventually, after several months of growing closer, Daniel took a big step and invited Kemi to meet his family. She hesitated at first, nervous about how they would react to her, but Daniel reassured her. "My family is going to love you," he said confidently. "Trust me." On the day she met his family, they welcomed her with open arms. His parents were kind, warm, and curious about her. As they left the family home that evening, Daniel wrapped his arm around her. "See? I told you they'd love you." Kemi smiled. "I guess you were right. It feels nice, being accepted." "Get used to it," Daniel said with a playful grin, "because you're not going anywhere." Kemi's heart swelled with warmth. One evening, 2 months after Kemi met Daniel's family, Daniel proposed. Kemi declined in panic. She struggled with the memory of the last engagement that had gone wrong. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel continued to ask her. He talked to her parents about his intentions. "Kemi, your mother told me you're not considering him seriously," her father said one evening. "He seems like a good man. Why not give him a chance?" "I don't know, Dad. With everything that happened with Bio," Kemi replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's not Bio, and he genuinely loves you," her father said. It took 3 months of Daniel asking before Kemi sat down with him one evening, her heart racing. "Okay, Daniel, I've thought about it a lot. I'm ready to marry you if you'd still have me." The moment was surreal. As the wedding day approached, Kemi's joy was overshadowed by anxiety. Her parents and her friends constantly reassured her that everything will be fine and that she deserved to be happy. With much prayer, the wedding day arrived. As Kemi walked down the aisle, her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. There was Daniel, waiting for her with love and warmth in his eyes. As they exchanged vows, Kemi's emotions swirled, but this time it was joy, pure and unrestrained. Kemi's mother couldn't hold back her tears. Watching her daughter, who had faced so many hardships, finally find happiness and acceptance in a man who loved her wholeheartedly. As Daniel and Kemi shared their vows, her mother leaned over to father, wiping her tears. "I never thought I'd see her this happy." Aide smiled warmly. "You can say that again." "You may kiss the bride," the pastor announced. Kemi looked over at her mother, giving her a reassuring smile, and in that moment, everything seemed perfect. But destiny had already set in motion a path to motherhood that would shake the foundation of everything she and Daniel had built together. Find out what happens next in the final part of this story. Did you enjoy this story? What stood out for you in Kemi's story so far? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to this channel, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when the next video is out. Thank you for watching.